I never thought I'd be the guy posting about a cheating wife on a relationship advice forum, but here I am. My name's Mike, and I've been with my wife, Jessica, for about 7 years now. We married young, both of us ambitious and a little reckless, but we loved each other. At least, I thought we did. Things started feeling off about 6 months ago, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. She became more distant, more bitchy, snapping at me for little things, and I noticed her phone was never out of her sight anymore. She'd hide it when I came near, and whenever I'd ask her what was wrong, she'd brush me off, say I was paranoid or overthinking. Then last month things got weird. Jessica started staying out later, saying she was working late or meeting friends, but I caught her in lies. I'd call her phone and she'd say she was already home. I found her phone once, and on the lock screen there was a message from someone named Matt, a name I didn't recognize. It was just a casual text, something about plans for the weekend, but the tone felt off. I felt that little prickle of suspicion, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Still, I kept an eye on her. What really broke it open was a few nights ago. I came home unexpectedly early, something I rarely do because I work long hours. As I opened the door, I heard voices from our bedroom. My heart jumped because I knew Jessica was supposed to be working late again. I froze, listening. There was her voice, but it wasn't her usual bitchy tone. It was husky, breathless, almost desperate. I strained to hear. Then I heard a man's voice, deep, familiar, but I couldn't quite place it. My stomach sank. Without thinking, I reached for my phone, and I managed to catch a quick video record of what was happening through the slightly open door. What I saw was Jessica on our bed, straddling someone I realized with horror was her estranged brother, Mark. They were kissing, undressing each other. She was moaning, and the way she was touching him, the way she looked at him, it was like she was craving something she definitely wasn't craving from me. I felt the floor drop out from under me. My mind went blank then. Flooded with anger, betrayal, and confusion. She'd lied to me about her work, stayed out all night, and now I see her cheating with her own brother. How did I get here? I left the footage on my phone, quietly backed out of the room, and just sat there, stunned. I couldn't believe it. I was in shock, but what hurt even more was the feeling that everything I thought I knew about us, about her, was a lie. How long had this been going on? Was it recent, or had they been sneaking around for months? My mind was racing, trying to process this surreal betrayal. My wife, the woman I trusted, the woman I thought I knew, turned out to be a liar, a cheat, and worse, she was cheating on me with her own brother. That part still feels like some sick, twisted nightmare I can't wake up from. I knew I had to confront her, but I wasn't ready yet. I just sat there, replaying the scene in my head, feeling this mix of rage and despair I'd never experienced before. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even really eat. I just kept thinking about how I got here, how I didn't see the signs, how I was so blind to what was happening right under my nose. This isn't just a betrayal, it's a full-on nightmare. And I know I have to decide what to do next, but honestly, I don't have a clue. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My mind kept circling back to that video I took, to what I saw happening in our bedroom. I couldn't believe it was real. Jessica, my wife, the woman I loved, was cheating on me, and not just with some random guy, but with her own brother. The betrayal cut so deep, I could feel the sting in my chest, like I'd been stabbed repeatedly. I kept asking myself if I'd missed the signs, if I'd been blind to how toxic our relationship had become. I knew I couldn't just pretend it didn't happen. I needed to confront her, but I also realized I had to plan carefully. I remembered how she lied about her nights out, how she dismissed my concerns with her sharp tongue, calling me paranoid or insecure. She always had a way of turning stuff around, making me feel like I was the problem. But this was different. I had proof, and I wasn't going to let her deny it. The first thing I did was sit down and write everything out. When I saw the message from Matt, what I witnessed last night, and how I felt, I wasn't about to lose my mind or scream at her without facts. I wanted to stay calm, but inside I was boiling. I also spent some time trying to piece together how long this had been going on. I called my brother Jason, the only person I could trust with this mess, and told him everything. His reaction was shock, but also guilt. Turns out he had reached out to Jessica a few months ago trying to reconcile, and that's when it all started. Jessica had been estranged from her family for years, mainly because of that brother, Mark. They'd had a complicated, bitter history, mostly her fault, from what I knew, and the last thing I ever thought was that she would turn around and betray me with him. I kept asking myself, was she always like this? Did she ever love me, or was I just another fool who got played? The thought of her lying, sneering, and pretending to be the perfect wife all these years made me sick. I knew I couldn't stay in that house. Not with her, not after what I saw. I packed a bag, took my phone, and left. I didn't want to blow up right then, not in violence or shouting. I just wanted to get away, clear my head. I stayed at a friend's place for a few hours, trying to breathe, trying to process what I'd discovered. In that quiet, I realized something. This wasn't just about her cheating. It was about her lying, her manipulating, her treating me like I was stupid. The woman I married, the woman I thought I knew, was a liar and a cheater, and she'd been hiding this from me for who knows how long. I eventually decided I needed to confront her face to face. I called her, and of course, she answered with that same bitchy tone, trying to act like everything was fine. She said I was overreacting, that I was imagining things, that I was paranoid. She called me insecure, jealous, and even tried to turn it around on me, saying I was the one who was distant and controlling. But I wasn't buying it, not anymore. I told her I knew everything about the texts, the nights out, her affair with Mark. Her response: she snapped back with some bullshit about how I was crazy, that she loved me, that it was just sex, and that I was making a big deal out of nothing. That was the moment I realized I'd been played, that her lies had built a wall around her that I'd never get through. I felt a deep sadness for what I'd lost, but also a fire of rage that I couldn't keep bottled up. I told her I was done, that I was leaving, and that I needed some time to think. She tried to plead, to cry, to manipulate me into staying, but I was already done with her bullshit. My stomach clenched every time I thought about her lying, sneering, cheating, how she had no respect for me or our marriage. That betrayal didn't just hurt, it shattered everything I thought was real. Now I find myself here, trying to piece everything together, trying to figure out what's next. I know I need to get out of that house. I can't stay with someone who lied so blatantly, who cheated with her own brother, for God's sake. I also know I need to talk to my brother Jason more. He's as devastated as I am, and I don't want to be the fool who let this destroy both my marriage and my family. I've got questions for her, questions I don't think she's ever going to honestly answer. I want to know how long she's been doing this, what her real feelings were, and if I was just some fool she settled for after all her lies. Every time I think about the betrayal, I feel this hot surge of anger and deep sadness. How could she do this? How could she lie to my face for so long? I'm honestly struggling to see any way forward that doesn't involve cutting her out of my life completely. But I also feel a strange sense of relief. Like, maybe I finally see her for what she really is. It's going to take time, but I know I'll get through this. I just wish I'd seen it coming sooner. After I left her the night before, I spent hours just sitting in my friend's place trying to make sense of everything. I kept replaying that scene in my head, Jessica straddling her brother, the way she moaned, the look in her eyes. It was like some sick, twisted nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I was furious, heartbroken, and utterly lost. I wanted to confront her again, scream at her, call her every name I could think of. But I knew that wouldn't help. I needed a plan, a way to handle this mess without falling apart entirely. The first thing I did was dig through my own feelings and try to stay calm, even though that was damn near impossible. I knew she'd lie her way out of this if I just confronted her blindly. So I made a decision. I'd gather all the evidence I could, think things through, and then lay everything out on the table. I called Jason again, and we talked for hours. He was just as stunned as I was, maybe even more so, since he had reached out to Jessica months ago trying to heal things. Turns out she'd been secretly talking to him, hiding their communication, and I had no idea. After that call, I started collecting everything, screenshots of her texts from Matt, the video footage I took, and a few photos I managed to sneak of her phone when she wasn't looking. I wasn't planning to throw everything at her immediately, but I wanted to be ready. I also reached out to a lawyer friend of mine just for advice about what my options were, Nothing concrete yet, just knowing what I could do legally if I decided to cut her out completely. Meanwhile, Jessica kept calling me, trying to guilt-trip me into coming back. She played the victim, claiming I was overreacting, that I was paranoid, that she loved me and didn't mean for any of this to happen. I was so bitter I almost laughed. She lied so smoothly, and honestly, I was starting to wonder if I'd ever really known her at all. The woman I married, the one I loved and trusted, had turned into someone I hardly recognized, a liar, a cheat, and a manipulator. Her words didn't matter anymore. I knew I had to focus on what was real, the evidence, my feelings, and what I wanted moving forward. I also reached out to my brother Jason. Again, more out of necessity than anything else. We hadn't spoken much lately, partly because I'd been busy with work, but mostly because I'd been avoiding him after I found out he'd reached out to Jessica during the estrangement. Now, I needed to hear his side, ask him what the hell he was thinking, and figure out if there was any way to salvage what was left of our relationship. The truth is, I've been feeling a weird mix of anger and sadness toward him. Part of me wants to cut him out just like Jessica, but I also know that deep down I still care about him. We're brothers after all, but this whole situation has turned everything upside down. Over the next few days, I kept everything to myself. No one outside my close circle knew what I was going through. I didn't want to make a scene or broadcast my pain. Instead, I analyzed, planned, and waited. I knew Jessica would keep spinning her lies, trying to paint herself as the victim. That's her style. She's bitchy, manipulative, and always has a quick excuse or a way to twist things around. I could see her trying to gaslight me, make doubt what I saw, what I heard, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I had enough evidence to blow her lies out of the water. One night I decided it was time. I texted her, told her I wanted to talk face to face and that I had some things she needed to answer for. I didn't want to be confrontational, but I also wasn't holding back. I told her I knew about her affair, the cheating with Mark, and that I had all the proof I needed. Her response was typical, angry, dismissive, full of denial. She called me crazy, said I was making a huge mistake and that I was overreacting. But I knew better. I'd seen what I saw, and I wasn't going to let her spin it away this time. The moment I knew I had her cornered was when I told her I was coming over to her place. I wanted her to see that I was serious. That's when she started to panic a little. Her tone shifted, and she begged me not to come, said she'd do anything to fix this. I wasn't interested in fixing what was already broken beyond repair. I just wanted her to face the reality of what she'd done. I was done being the naive husband, the fool who believed her lies. This was her chance to come clean, but I knew she wouldn't. Instead, she threw out more lies, accused me of spying, said I was insecure, asked me if I was jealous of her brother. Honestly, it was disgusting. The way she lied, the way she tried to turn everything around on me, it made me realize I'd been blind for too long. I thought I knew her, but I'd just been naive. I was furious, hurt, and so disappointed in the woman I thought I'd spend my life with. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I saw her for what she really was, someone manipulative, selfish, and completely untrustworthy. I knew I couldn't stay with her, not after everything I'd found out. The only question left was what to do next, and I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I'd have to make a choice, stay and try to work through this or walk away for good. The night I decided to confront Jessica in person, I was a mess of nerves and rage. I knew I had evidence. I knew she'd try to lie her way out, but I also knew I couldn't keep living in this fog of betrayal. I remember walking up to her apartment, hands trembling, heart pounding. When she opened the door, her eyes immediately flicked to my phone. She knew I wasn't coming empty-handed. Her fake smile was gone, replaced with that bitchy, defensive glare she always pulled when backed into a corner. I didn't waste time with small talk. I laid out everything I had, screenshots of her texts, the video I took last night, the photos of her phone. I watched her face twist and contort with every new piece of evidence. Her lips parted, then closed, then opened again with some snarky comeback she clearly had prepped, but I cut her off. "Jessica," I said, voice steady but full of venom, "I saw you last night. I saw you cheating on me. With your brother. How long has this been going on?" "Because I don't think I want to hear any more lies tonight." She sneered, then rolled her eyes. Oh, please, Mike, you're overreacting. You always do. It was just sex. It didn't mean anything. I couldn't believe. The audacity, sex, just sex, that was her excuse. After everything, she was trying to brush it off like a meaningless fling. I shook my head, feeling the heat rise in my chest. Just sex. Are you serious? That wasn't just sex, Jessica. It was your brother, your own flesh and blood. How could you do that? How could you betray your own family like that? Her response was a nasty laugh. Oh, grow up, Mike. You're just jealous and insecure. You think I'm going to sit here and let you accuse me of some sick family drama? Please. Mark and we've been dealing with our shit for years. It's none of your business. I stared at her, stunned. The way she dismissed it all like it was nothing, like I was some fool who didn't see what was happening right under my nose. I felt like I'd been sucker punched, my entire world collapsing around me. I couldn't breathe. I'm done with your lies, I told her coldly. I want you to pack your stuff and leave. We're done, this is over. Her eyes widened, then she sneered again. You're throwing away 7 years over some stupid video? You're pathetic. I clenched my fists. You're the pathetic one, Jessica. You lied, you cheated, and you did it with your own brother. I can't trust you anymore, not after this. She looked for a way out, some way to manipulate her way free, but I stood firm. I told her I'd be taking copies of everything I had, that I'd be talking to a lawyer, and that I was done playing her sick game. The rage I suppressed all night bubbled over. I told her she could spin her lies all she wanted, but I saw the truth, and I was finally done with her bullshit. She tried to push back, throwing some tears and begging, but I wasn't buying it. I knew she was just trying to keep her web of lies intact, but I'd seen enough. I told her to leave, and she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I was left standing there alone, feeling a mix of relief and devastation. I had what I needed, but at what cost? My marriage, my trust, everything I thought I knew shattered in a single night. The next day I started packing my things. I didn't want to stay in that house, surrounded by all her lies and betrayal. I texted Jason, told him I was done with Jessica, that I was filing for divorce. I didn't want to face her again. I just wanted out, to reclaim my life and figure out what the hell I was supposed to do next. I felt angry at myself for trusting her so long, angry at her for the lies, and furious at her for cheating with her own brother. That last part kept echoing in my mind like some sick, twisted punchline to this nightmare. I realized that I'd have to rebuild from scratch. Trust was gone, maybe forever. But I also knew I deserved better than someone who could do this kind of damage, who could lie and cheat and turn her own family into her playground of deception. I told myself I'd get through this, that I'd be stronger without her, even if it hurt like hell. And as I looked at the empty apartment, I felt a strange mix of clarity and heartbreak. I had to decide what kind of man I wanted to be moving forward, one who forgave and forgot, or one who moved on and never looked back. The days that followed were some of the darkest I've ever experienced. I threw myself into packing my things, trying to turn the chaos in my head into some semblance of order. Every item I packed felt like a small act of reclaiming my life, piece by piece. Jessica's betrayal had shattered the foundation of everything I believed about us, but I was determined not to let it destroy me completely. I spent hours going through her phone, her messages, and I kept coming back to the fact that she lied so effortlessly, her words, her excuses, her manipulations. She called me paranoid, insecure, obsessive, her usual arsenal of deflections. But I saw through all of that. I saw her true colors, and they weren't pretty. I reached out to my lawyer friend, Karen, just for advice. I had no illusions about what I wanted, divorce, definitely. But I needed to know what I was entitled to, what the process would look like, and how much this whole thing might cost me emotionally. Karen listened patiently, then told me to gather all evidence, keep a record of everything, and don't rush into anything. I knew I'd need to file soon, but I also wanted to make sure I had everything in order. I was done taking her lies at face value. From this point on, I was planning to be calculated, precise, and absolutely firm. Meanwhile, Jessica kept trying to contact me, calling, texting, even showing up at my friend's place. Her tone was different now, less bitchy, more desperate. She'd throw out apologies or fake tears, claiming she didn't mean for any of this to happen, that she was confused, or that it was just a terrible mistake. I wanted to believe she was lying again, but deep down I knew better. That part of me that had still hoped she'd come clean was gone. I saw her for what she really was, a manipulative, selfish woman capable of the worst betrayal. I also reached out to Jason again. He was just as devastated, maybe more. He admitted that reaching out to Jessica was wrong, that he'd been confused and hurt, but that he never imagined she'd go as far as cheating on me with him. We both agreed that this was beyond repair, that trust was completely broken now. The fact that she'd been sneaking around with her own brother made everything so much worse. It wasn't just about the affair. It was about the whole twisted dynamic she had with her family, her lies, her manipulations. I kept asking myself if I'd missed all the signs, if I'd ever really known her at all. One night, I finally sat down and wrote a long letter. Not to send, just to pour out everything I was feeling: anger, heartbreak, betrayal. I needed to get it out of my system. I told her that I knew everything: the texts, the video, the lies. I called her every name I could think of: manipulative, selfish, disgusting. I reminded her of the man I was before she tore me apart. I told her I wouldn't be a victim of her lies anymore, that I'd be better without her. I realized that I had to accept that I was losing the woman I loved and maybe even losing a part of myself in the process. But I also knew that I'd survive. I had to. The tricky part was how to tell the world, or at least everyone close to us, what had happened. I didn't want to broadcast it to everyone, but I knew I'd have to explain the sudden divorce, the abrupt end to our marriage. I decided to be honest, nothing about the details, but enough to let people know that I wasn't the fool she painted me as. I wanted the truth to come out because I knew she'd spin her lies, try to make me the villain. But I refused to let her control the narrative anymore. In the quiet moments when I was alone, I'd feel this gnawing pain: loss, anger, regret, confusion. Every time I thought about her lying, cheating, and sneaking behind my back with her brother, I'd get furious all over again. But amid that pain, I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I realized I'd spent so much time trying to fix things with her, trying to keep the illusion alive. But now I saw clearly that staying with her would only mean more lies, more betrayal, more heartbreak. I had to let go, no matter how much it hurt. So I started making plans. I booked a small apartment nearby, enough to get some space and breathe. I talked to a therapist, something I'd been putting off for years, and slowly I began to accept that I'd be okay, that I'd rebuild, that I deserved better than someone who could destroy us so easily. I also made a silent vow to myself. I'd never let anyone manipulate me the way Jessica did. Never again. But I knew I still had a lot to process. This betrayal wasn't just about her cheating. It was about the entire foundation of trust we'd built crumbling in an instant. As much as I wanted to hate her, I couldn't help but feel sad for the woman I thought I knew. Because somewhere deep down I still wondered, was there ever really love, or was I just fooling myself? That question haunted me, and honestly I didn't have an answer yet. The final days were a whirlwind of mixed emotions: bitterness, relief, confusion, and a strange sense of liberation. I spent hours packing the last of my things, each box a symbolic step away from the life I thought I had with Jessica. I kept replaying everything: the lies, the betrayal, the sickening realization that the woman I loved was capable of such deception. I knew I couldn't erase the pain overnight, but with each passing day, I started to feel a little more like myself, a little more in control of my own story. One afternoon, I sat down at the small apartment I'd rented, a cup of coffee in hand, and looked out the window. The world outside was still spinning, life moving on. I thought about all I had learned from this nightmare: the importance of trust, the danger of ignoring red flags, and how sometimes the greatest act of self-respect is walking away from someone who doesn't respect you back. I realized that I'd spent so much time trying to fix what was broken, trying to believe in the woman I thought loved me, that I'd almost lost sight of my own worth. Jessica tried to reach out one last time, but I didn't pick up. I knew her apologies and lies were just another manipulation. I had already made my decision. I'd cut her out, clean and clear. I was done with the chaos, done with the lies. I told Jason I was going to be okay. I told my friends I appreciated their support, even if they didn't fully understand what had happened. I knew I needed time to heal, to figure out what my new life looked like without her. Looking back, I realized this experience has changed me in ways I never expected. I was naive, trusting, maybe even a little blind. But I also learned that resilience isn't about never falling, it's about getting back up when you do. I learned that no matter how deep the betrayal, you can find a way to rebuild, to redefine what happiness means for yourself. And I learned that sometimes, the best revenge is simply walking away and proving that you're stronger than your pain. Now I focus on rebuilding my life, slowly, carefully, with caution, but also with hope. I refuse to let her define me anymore. I'm not bitter, I'm wiser. I'm miles away from that naive guy who thought love was enough to fix everything. No, trust isn't given lightly anymore, and I'll never let someone manipulate or betray me like that again. But I still believe in love, just maybe not the kind I once thought I had. The most important lesson I take from all this is that betrayal teaches you your true worth. It's painful, yes, but it also sets you free. I'm finally free of her lies, her manipulations, and her sick secrets. I'm finally able to breathe again, to look forward, and to remind myself that I deserve someone who respects and loves me, not someone capable of destroying everything we built for a fleeting moment of selfishness. And so, I move forward, stronger, wiser, and finally ready to find happiness on my own terms.